Hello, and welcome to the Brooklyn Rail's 141st New Social Environment. I'm Emily, and I have the pleasure and privilege of being your MC today for a radical poetry reading curated by Kay Gabriel. Every Wednesday leading up to the election, a guest curator will invite a number of poets who they admire to the New Social Environment to read political poetry. And today we are also thrilled to have poets Dagan Brown, Amy Diaz, Joyce, Wendy Trevino, and Adjua Gargi Nzinga Greaves here with us today. The Brooklyn Rail acknowledges that we are on the unceded territory of the Lenni Lenape, Canarsie, Shinnecock, and Munsee peoples. We acknowledge the many indigenous nations with ties to this land, and we recognize that the Lenape still call Mannahatta home. The Brooklyn Rail stands in solidarity with the uprisings unfolding across the country following the murders of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Tony McDade, Nina Pop, David McAtee, James Scurlock, Jamel Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Rayshard Brooks, Rhea Milton, Dominique Remy Fells, Antoine Salau, among countless others, and in response to generations of structural violence against Black communities. Black Lives Matter, and we will continue to support ongoing action in the struggle for racial justice. Before I introduce our curator, we'd like to begin with a brief moment of silence. Thank you. And now to introduce today's curator. Kay Gabriel is a poet and essayist. She's the author of Kissing Other People or The House of Fame from Rosa Press 2021, and the chapbook Elegy Department Spring / Candy Sonnets 1 from Boat Press 2017. With Andrea Abi-Karam, she co-edited We Want It All, an anthology of radical trans poetics from Nightbook 2020. Kay is a member of the editorial collective for the Poetry Project newsletter. Kay, over to you.
Wonderful, Emily. Thank you so much. Can everyone hear me? That's great. I am also hoping that my Zoom will not spontaneously cut out. If it does, I will move closer to the router. So I will, appreciate your patience and everything. Thank you for coming. I guess I don't. Like maybe this is a moment to share an opinion about something like radical poetry, and obviously I have a lot of those, which you can find variously in my writing and whatever. But I don't really want to talk too much about it now. I will just say that in a moment of intensifying contradiction, one thing that I think I find very grounding, and one thing that gives me a lot of joy in addition to other things that I bring joy into everyone's lives. Like, I don't know, say the Philly camps winning their demands for housing from the Philadelphia Housing Authority. That's a really good win. Industry city developers pulling their rezoning application from South Brooklyn. That's a really good win. So in addition to all of these kind of movement victories, let's say, that can give us joy and strength for our lives, poetry is one of those. And it's something that I find very grounding in this moment, on the level of, say, both thought and feeling. That comes from, among many other people, some of the poets who I have invited for this session today. So I will go ahead and introduce them. They are going to read first Amy, Dagan, Wendy, Brendan, and then Adjua. I'm going to introduce them in that order. And I want to thank poets. I want to thank you so much for coming. I want to thank the Rail for having us. I want to thank everyone else for tuning in. So I'm going to start with Amy. Amy Diaz has published a number of chapbooks, including On My Love for Gender Abolition and Lower Parallel. She's working on an academic book, Unsociable, Antagonism and Abstraction in Contemporary Feminized Poetry. And with Nat Hurley and Sean O'Brien is finishing a short book called Antisocial Reproduction. which is a great title. She teaches contemporary literature, culture, and theory at King's College London. Thank you so much, Amy.
Thank you, Kay. Thanks everyone. Hi from rainy London. It's 6:09 here. And I was just explaining to the others that I have a glass of wine, but not at 1 o'clock. But maybe that's fine, whatever. Thanks to the Brooklyn Rail for putting this on. And I also want to use this opportunity to say thank you to Anselm Berrigan for publishing some of my poems a couple of times in the Brooklyn Rail. It's been a really nice thing for me. And thank you, Kay, for inviting me to read with these awesome poets. And Kay is such an amazing poet herself that, you know, the invitation means a lot. I'm going to read first a short poem by Tom Rayworth. Tom died a couple of years ago, but he, well, I always admired his contempt and disdain for university institutions. And I'm particularly thinking of that now at the start of the semester. The way he hated the class divisions that they reproduce, that universities reproduce, even though he worked in them from time to time. So I guess that's my little bit, I'll say. So I'm going to read this poem called Drinking Electricity by Tom. It was named, I think, after this 1980s post-punk band from Edinburgh. It doesn't say that in the poem, but that's what I'm guessing. And it's a bit of a mouthful, so I have to take a deep breath. Drinking electricity. More forms, search, telling, damaged by less vegetation, cover, created unexplained oddities, languages propose an ambiguous method, particles of logical consistency grow into a high bulge clockwise in the heat. Water exhaust enough to compete, transmuted by inconsistence, by any desire, not water, developed, limited, sensual experience, a fate for eye-warming, draws up religious ceremonies of arithmetic's ultimate capability. No predetermined products minimize the itinerary. A sequence of images is no evidence expressible outside experience. Mere forms, search, tolling, damaged by less vegetation, cover, created unexplained oddities, particles of illogical consistency, spin clockwise in the heat, grow into a high bulge, a fateful eye warning, water exhaust enough to compete, languages propose an ambiguous method, transmuted by inconsistence, by any desire, not water, developed, limited, sensual experience, draws up religious ceremonies of arithmetic's ultimate capacity, far mountains, flat, black, behind a line of red lights, a pigeon banks bleached by the flash, the ocean is indescribable. Thank you, Tom. And I'm going to follow that with a poem of mine with a line from that poem by Tom. It's called That Well of Tears Is Mine. No community is to me as I once caved into you. I said, beware the diversion of the populace who were, think is nice, maybe, unscrolling after death and shut out of a more screen time, a common day of breathing, the cacti, the glass windows, and through them our lungs. And through them all ways of unseeing ourselves, and through them nothing in the whole word too secular for you, except old school criminals at the Free Mart fair, the doctors batting away the stultifying air, the bad air and the heat of the boring poor, who were once the Free Mart fair, who dares to pull to their lips a satisfactory reel and wresting of the ideal from your arms. You suck, I said, ouch, but wasn't ready to say why. Said could be worse for some or many, said lower than a vacuum in space. Said could be worse for come what may, that well of tears is mine. Oh well, I wasn't ready. No community is to me, as I once said. I said, John, look down at your wet pants and what is coming there. That xenofeminist manifesto, a weight upon your heart. I said, Joan, I said, a bread riot is a bread riot is a bread riot is all that's keeping you from me. And all those ways of unfurling ourselves clockwise in the heat. Because tyrants never quite complete the closure of the world system, that fullness they desire. Get off, you said, ouch, but wasn't able to explain tuberculosis or common cold. No, you deserve this sick day. Or that sick day, go do one day. Wasn't Jane's abortion service awesome to behold? Said free Winona, hold the phone. Oh well, oh well, oh well. It's the open secret that social classes hide, that whatever singularity, that well of tears is mine. And I'm going to read some sonnets. I've got 8 sonnets to read, and the first 3 are called Bernadette Sonnets. 1. I had a dream that you knitted me a scarf, hat, and also that you made me a pair of trousers. Why the rigid mortification made of stone but still walking? Can we do this without romanticizing anybody? Can anyone who can see the wood for the trees escape a sensation of sovereignty? So much work to take writing seriously. Who is my friend and who's my lover? There must be some confusion. I'm walking in those concrete trousers, but I'm taking this to the top, to the senior vice chancellor, pro VC, president and principal, and then higher to the order of St. Cassia, who's fortunately dead, like the Lamb of God and therefore supreme. Oh, Cassandra, I had a dream that we were together again, a previous life fluttering into my heart like books through the window, and with titles like Suffolk Miscellany, The Forager's Calendar, and Queer Saint. Who can blame me? Sunshine, in the words of the survivor, worrying always about theorizing and never living as we imagine our transformations fleshily, compiling inventories, taxonomies, catalogues and registers, hearing instead of music the words of the complainant, who this time IDs as a butthurt feudal lord. I wish merely to be someone like Brecht or Joan Didion, or any New York school painter, or maybe sensuousness, which inexplicably people still love. That's a cheap shot, I know, but I did wash your dish. I, accident eyelid. I had a dream that we did transform, that Lord, I can change as a commodity waiting to appear, and in the meantime getting laid in a countable way. I should have been accountable in the Empire Diner in Ionia in the 6th century BC, which is where my domestic troubles began. I said my DNA is not self-reproducing. He said, that's my money walking home to a happy future. And it's a money I remember the taste of. It seems familiar, I think to myself. And then I think, and then I remember it's my money. But look around, there is no money walking me home. I do not remember the taste of you. I forgot to say I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's all accountable, we say, but it can't be explained, except when you want to own it. If I could remember at all, I'd remember again. Who can't write a sonnet made of Bernadette fuck sonnets? I had a dream we were both on fire and drowning in an envelope of Nighting's Outly, but no, look at the full moon accelerating. I'm lost remembering an Alan Davies poem about cocks, cunts, and a line drawing of a woman making a bed. A masterminded cunt who said, come save me up. You can have me, she said, steampunk rising from the sheets. You mist of 2020 fuck, you petty pendergrass, you deistic whore, left only to emulate love's obsidian eyes to waltz thy sheets, given it to be gone and to give room, given it to be gone and to give room, to given it room. And this sonnet's called Transferable Skull. I'm sorry about that. When you're walking on a stage, the affirmation of a union, should living offend the dead, or should I avenge thee? When you're walking on a star, manage not to get pregnant. I lied, I don't know who you are, or how to hear that differently. If Tyburn limbs the vines of this great moving right show to keep up the payments generationally, but I feel differently, and it does offend me. Suboptimal what? I dreamt I came from around here, buttercup, tall glass, reproducing, nothing I'm proud of, a right-wing policy think tank, a lilac banner, nothing I could forget not well, like acclimatizing to Soylent Green or AC Grayling. Is it true that the people or the public said that? When inverting the arc of history, do nothing that you do not well and wear it, all I would keep for myself, having become the result of a process and having produced results myself. It is right that cortisol is a turnkey operation, and that although these phenomena are not entirely new, acclimatizing to the recommendations of think tanks around here means don't come around here. They're the same loam. If a small increment would make you happier, bro, then I am your cab driver. Knock yourself out. You are Policy Exchange, a flagrant impersonation of a homing pigeon, but this illusionist ambivalence is the fool you feel yourself to be, and thus to have a temperament, to achieve buy-in, to love oneself, to have a sense of self, unwilling to believe when all this is said and done, that 3/4 of people who say they have a dead life lived. But it's you I confide in the most when I have a temperature too shrill for the baby that's coming to nest on my knee. My father lies peacefully here. This application has no ideas intrinsic to itself. I might die on that hill, convoked to a state of excitement by something much larger than me. And I'll just finish with this sonnet called Sonnet, beginning with a line from George Economy's Piers Plowman. For this good God, grant me forgiveness for my worthless living during my entire lifetime. I couldn't be less inventive if I tried. What is the trajectory of the virus now? Eludes me like a task I still must do to exit this concept, real and imagined by absconding piss babies, unwise grandpas slapped then flung laterally on the eyes, nose and mouth. On this day of nationalist fervour, I be not mercy flying through the trees, dioramas of thinning spirals that slide on water, then return back to us panting and plumper than before, a force of nature splayed there where, scientifically, I cannot be mercy. Thank you. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Thank you so much, Amy. Oh my God. That was fucking incredible.
Thank you, Kay.
I only regret that I couldn't have my mic on so you could hear me shrieking with laughter.
It's really weird doing the poetry reading to it. I mean, really, that's cool, but it's I can see the messages. Weird. Thank you for all the affirmation.
Yeah, and thanks also for the Tom Rayworth poem. It sort of felt like hearing a mirror image, whatever, we're gonna stick with that, of like the RAF or something. Like commodified knowledge production or whatever. That was badass. Thank you so much, and thank you for joining us in a very different time zone. And I hope the wine is great. Our next reader is Dagan Brown. Dagan has reviewed poetry for the Poetry Project newsletter and currently writes poems in Baltimore. Dagan, take it away.
I'm on. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Kay, for inviting me, and thanks for the Brooklyn Rail for hosting this. Okay, so the first poem I'm going to read is not by me. It's by a Brazilian poet named Carlos Drummond de Andrade. I practice trying to pronounce that name, so. And I think it sets the tone pretty well for the rest of the stuff I'm going to read, which is by me. So here it is. It's called Elegy 1938. You work without joy for a worn-out world whose forms and actions set no example. You laboriously perform the universal motions. You feel heat and cold, lack of money, hunger, and sexual desire. Heroes fill the city parks where you drag your feet, and they preach virtue, renunciation, fortitude, vision. At night, if it drizzles, they open bronze umbrellas or retreat to the tomes of sinister libraries. You love the night for its power to annihilate, and you know when you sleep, the problems stop requiring you to die. But you fatally wake up to the great machine existing, and once more you stand, minuscule, next to inscrutable palms. You walk among dead people, and with them you talk about things of the future and matters of the spirit. Literature has ruined your best hours of love. You've wasted time for sewing, too much time on the phone. Proud-hearted, you're in a hurry to confess your defeat and postpone collective happiness for another century. You accept the rain, the war, unemployment, and unfair distribution because you can't, by yourself, blow up the island of Manhattan. So that was Mr. Carlos. And now I'm gonna go over to mine. I'm first gonna read some really short poems and then like 3 longer ones, I think. So this first one is just, I'm trying to see if I can put it over here. Oh, there it is, perfect. Okay. This first one is called Prayer. Oh God, give me the next century now, where no life need emerge from out canyons of blood, and no child subject ever again to the threadbare sanity of others. I will not reconcile myself to the sun's implosion. I will not stare at the sun, blood rot black. I will not lie down to sing and rot in a bed. Okay. And this next one's called What I Want. This is to my boyfriend, Dominic, if he is indeed watching. I can't see who's in the thing, but I think he's here. What I want. For example, love like it's easy, pain when it's worth it, nothing else. And if you oversee the cats, the books, the washing of crummy sheets, I'll dry those sheets. I'll whip them to wind. The beans and the rice I'll shoplift. Spitting around a city, we'll look up. If the footfalls get to be too much or the buildings get way objective, I want to be left out to eye, caught on yours in particular. That's what I'd want. That's what it'd pay me back on years of tyrannical costs, what the unworried world owes. Okay. And then these next two are both titled Investigations. And it's part of like a cycle, but I'm not done yet. But so, an epigraph to the poem is, to him who has nothing, it is forbidden not to relish filth, which is from Samuel Beckett. Investigation 1 on feeling dirty. Now, you know me. I can read a room just as well as an era. It's clear there's no time for anything save ruminating more on our parents' divorces or the many ways a people might gather to scratch an ass. I've at least 3 centuries of studied trash in my craw. I'll cough it up to spell out my name and the name of my father, plus the name of my mother and my favorite dirty jokes. These are, as it turns out, the simple things with which I'd hoped to begin. My dirty father, my funny mommy, hundreds of years of gobbled up quips, a parentage and personal history in the form of a bunch of stupid jokes. It's so easy to lose track, especially for me, a loser. Because you know losers, we can never find our way out of a joke. Winnies, winners, moneyed studs, and fat pins, they are above all jokes because they tell them. Now, this world owes me, say, a millennium of silence, a long, hot whistling of wind through all the flying teeth, and a space for it, one clean field, all green wind, please. The bank's maw, a lifetime supply of losing, the big open turkey plus the not enough stuffing, coming apart, macerated cotton, soaked virtual with text. Apologies, lost the way again. Let's return now to those simple things with which I'd hoped to begin. I am unhappy, and I know just who to blame. I'm close to a breakthrough, and things are breaking down with me. I'm a dupe to keep dealing in words, rattling them like coins in a cup. Investigation 1 on feeling dirty, part 2. I hate that I didn't finish that last poem. I got to the end, sure, but I didn't stitch it up. You definitely wouldn't be able to sleep by it, much less show it to a friend and say, okay, knowing not too much about the long history of quilts or looms or weaving, isn't this ragged thing sort of nice? A poem takes me too far out. A novel brings me too far in. A movie, I know, is a thing to which you jerk off. Let's not stray again. Let's forget that I know anything save what the hobbled giants who licked at me for all my years have taught. Let's forgo considerations of my rage at the yapping of jokesters, the relation of this rage to my tawdry waddle and the congenital qualities of the clown. Let's ignore as well good relations, the residuum of aesthetic educations, the embarrassed pedigree of trust funds, and the relation, finally, of the trust fund to, oh, not much at all, drooling, feeling, figuring it out. Here is what I was taught when I was 12 and had finally seen that it's all to do with fathers, stupid and desperate and with half a heart, or had it all to do with mothers giving unheeded advice and half a laugh. I recall talk of the primacy of the consequence of instruments such as hands, hands, and hands. No, it has to do with the centuries, that there never was one without panic, all those eked out reliefs and lonely jonesings, or it came down to the subject, cramped, came down to the object, unyielding. I think it was to do with scrambled eggs and I am. And this, I think, will be the last one I read. I'm just looking through real quick. Yeah. Oops. Sorry, my thing just went away. Ooh, y'all bear with me for a second. It's okay. All right, here we are. We're back. Okay, there we are. Perfect. Okay. The title is just April 24th, 2019, because that's when I wrote it. I can't believe it. I'm back from Georgia. Anta's back from Paris. We've both just returned to the city and things keep falling, ripe and into place. Charlie's back from the new school talk. She just got to the apartment. She's rolling a cigarette and speaking manically about psychoanalysis and new frontiers of pleasure, gender, for one vexed example. Some years ago, I left a home that cruelly kept me. Many such people are kept, and that we call a family. I can't believe I'm on about it still. My eyes through all the years were filled with tears and haziest visions of embraces that might shatter and remake me. And now, I can't believe it. It was just some years ago, but I got out like Anta did, and despite all odds, so too Elise. Now I'm here, and hear the sound of every simple pleasure landing in the bathing grass. All the lives I could have led, all the lives I thought I'd lead, like so much sawdust now, strewn across the shit heap. And this is how I get to thinking, looking out at all the building tops from the windows in Cammie's place where Anta and I are crashing, looking out at all the building tops, blundering up and down, impossible row after impossible row of what I can only comprehend as man's stupidest, most impressive mistake. All that ugliness, all that indigence, all the homes that still have captors who couldn't find a way out, and all those caught without a home. I'm thinking, no way this goes on forever. No way we all keep seeing with tears in our eyes. You can't expect anything at all, except you're having to fight. You can't expect anything at all. No way this goes on forever. I say this to myself, don't even have to believe it, like how it's not a question of believing pangs in your stomach or your own trembling hands in front of you. Anta and Elise, myself, all these people, I can't believe there was a life before this one. One day, we'll all say that. Anta's in the other room sleeping. Hope she won't wake hungover. I've got a hefty book out on the table. It's the Collected Marks. I flip to a random page cause I'm real into contingents, and it's perfect. I'll tell Anta when she wakes. Somewhere in England, the old man thinking of us and crying. Isn't the character of each epoch alive in the nature of its fumbling children? And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dagan. Oh my God. I remember when you read on Feeling Dirty at City Hall. And I was like, holy shit, wow. It's like fucking incredible. Thank you so much. That's beautiful. I guess, gosh, who's next? Wendy is reading next for us. Wendy Trevino was born and raised in the Rio Grande Valley of South Texas. She lives in San Francisco, where she shares an apartment with her boyfriend, friend, and 2 cats. She has published chapbooks with the Perfect Lovers Press, Commune Editions, and Krupskaya Books. Brazilian No Es Una Raza, a bilingual edition of the chapbook she published with Commune, was published by the feminist Mexican press in Hambre de Rosario in July 2018. Her first book-length collection of poems, Cruel Fiction, was published by Commune Editions in September 2018. Wendy is not an experimental writer. Wendy, take it away.
Hi guys, thank you for having me. Thank you, Kay, for putting this together. I'm going to read a poem by Bertolt Brecht first, and then a few by Oki Sugumi, and then 2 by me. Okay, so the first one, Bertolt Brecht. If what is should endure. If what is should endure, then you are lost. Your friend is change, your companion in arms is discord. From nothing you must make something. but the mighty shall be brought to nothing. Whatever you have, give it up, and take up instead what is denied you. And this is from Oki's book, Poems 2012, 2017. First poem is called Cosmos. Sometimes I eat moments slowly like a bread bean bun, and wonder if we can finally have birds without dying, if this blanket pessimism is necessary for collective liberation, if quietude is part of learning to love, or if I should be laughing more. My attachment has sesamied a pattern so unconcerned it makes its own perfection, its own rivets. Mid-laugh swings, it enters me. Does it enter you? Hold. Death is political, but our politics are not adequate. Tonight, all the ugly feelings previously memorialized return, like the earth is cut up, like fuck this migration of fear across and out from woundedness, like fuck state and capital and how nothing is for us, except this love is something. And I don't want that to be about containment. I want this too to be in excess. If the air is gonna bleed like this, let go, hold tight. (2016) love poem, turn into a musk only you can smell. Some people never totally get comfortable with you, and you never get totally comfortable with them, even as lovers and confidants and all that. It's not always clear why, even when you love them to death, and you're pretty solid in the fact that they care for you too. Then there is the opposite problem, the kind of instant body level feeling of fitting with someone, like you've been wearing them on your skin forever or forever ago, and you recognize them. This doesn't always make for a comfortable situation though, since the affection you feel might not be based on real sustained intimacy or necessarily mutual, but the feeling may be infectious. If it is not demanding something, maybe it is strange, but has its own pull. Maybe if your bodies do end up in contact for a time, something really good happens. Things collapse and explode a little. You end up in a pool of sweat like a broken egg, like what the fuck, and it kind of haunts you for months and months. Eventually, maybe the lack of mutuality haunts you a little bit too, but fuck it, it still happened. Unlike many other things, after a period of losses, maybe that kind of connection takes on special meaning as something that can't really be taken from you, even if everything else goes to shit, even if it's not totally mutual. That feeling of arrival, like you finally arrived in your body without it feeling like a prison. Even though you are not a huge believer in love, romantic love, you also don't know how to explain this feeling, including to the person who makes you feel this way, as something that can be explained into a reasonable looking object. Stupid things stick to it. You get frustrated. Sometimes you think, what's the point if I can't make it appear like a magic trick you didn't catch on video, or an experiment whose results have scattered into the atmosphere and no one else can reproduce. You can't help but feel lost because it is your general orientation. You develop a need for approximations. You savor presence like ladles of warmth you've waited, hoarded, until some moment in the winter, in the middle of forgetting the feeling, it floods back into your life. You learn more about the person, things build up and grow. Sometimes the growth should be scraped away. Sometimes it surprises you what new things can still happen, new forms of steadiness and trust, new forms of rockiness and disappointment. Sometimes you get the feeling that you are meeting them all over again. Their body has traveled, you live apart. They connect to people you never meet. Maybe you do the same. Your connection isn't always about a continuity, and this fact can feel jarring. And the sweetness also, how tender you suddenly feel toward their hand or their breathing under the comforter, or after a conversation in the car on your way back to the city, as industrial parks at night do not mark your spatial relation to the world. A floating feeling. You wonder if they read this, they will tell you what they like, that they like it, but don't exactly get it. You think that's okay though, because you feel an understanding might be there too, a mesh floor of tiny sparks. so that every flood does not deplete you and every withdrawal or difference doesn't crumble the fragile ground. It might be easier now, you think, to spread out some of that tenderness and carve our jokes into it. In the life world of the desert, a factory spins its fibers, weaving a sandy blanket. We pause on its surface as the light shifts to dusk, scrambling its knotty rocks. Flutters of birds that do not know us. I'm still wondering what to do. I'm still wanting to wonder with you. And just two more. There's short ones of mine. I haven't written a lot for a while, but every once in a while something comes. So the first one's called How to Deal with Surveillance Cameras. Someone with purple hair and pronouns I don't know climbs up and shimmies across a pole somewhere in Chile, arms and legs wrapped around it, to reach a camera, to destroy a camera surrounded by thousands of workers, students, people who use the subway. Everyone claps and the person shimmies back along the pole a bit, and legs first, then arms, let's go. And it works out, ends up being the best trust fall ever. It's only when the person is in the arms of the crowd and they see that they can keep someone from hitting the ground that everyone cheers. And it's always this way with revolutionary love. There's always so much of it you can't contain, and all these people ready to catch all these people they don't know can't contain it. Not wanting to be caught trying to contain it, there are things more beautiful that start here with this. Last one. When you hear people say, burn down the American plantation, and this one's for the revolutionary abolitionist movement, which actually is based in New York. Look at it this way. Sometimes you have to burn things down to rebuild. This is where the Quick Trip that belonged to the man who called the cops on Mike Brown used to be. The precinct that deployed the cops who murdered George Floyd used to be here. And over here, there used to be a Target. And over here, there used to be a CVS. And over here, there was a corner store that sold cans of soda for $1 a pop and white t-shirts for $10 each. A building where slave traders sold slaves during the Civil War once stood here. That used to be the deli where Latasha Harlins was murdered by Sunja Du. That used to be a Mercedes-Benz dealership. The Wendy's where Richard Brooke was murdered by cops used to be here. This used to be the center of the world's automotive industry. And when the marches turned into riots, the cop cars were parked here, 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 here. Thank you.
Oh yeah. There are little spots in Fort Greene where people have marked some of that shit out. Thank you for bringing Brecht into this space that's like I think this like that those lines that are, you know, like, whatever you have, give it up and take instead what is denied you. It's like this kind of really crystalline sense of dispossession as a ground of solidarity. And thank you also for bringing Oki into this space. She's so great. And for yourself and Revolutionary Left. Thank you so much, Wendy. Our next reader is Brendan. Brendan Joyce is an unemployed worker, the co-organizer of Grieveland, and the author of Character Limit and Love and Solidarity. Welcome, Brendan.
Hi, how you doing? Thank you so much for having me, Kay. Thanks to the Rail, and thanks for the other readers, especially Wendy and Dagan killed it. Amy, amazing. I hope you can all hear me. And if not, I guess I'll just stand here and be weird. So I'm gonna open with a poem by Steele. Steele can be found at Labor Cellar. The poem's called To Eat the Fruit, Climb the Tree. And it goes like this. Of course, I want to sit with you, to float weightless on your breath above the bluebell and the white thorn at the east end of the orchard. Of course, I want to rest. I want to sleep. But listen, we cannot let the landlords live. So starting off with that, I'm going to read from my book Character Limit, which we just released on Graveland, but I originally wrote in tweets a year ago. This is 43 from Character Limit. If it's a revolution, a lot of people will die, but it's an election and they're dying already. 40. The sprawl's vocabulary paints the landscape, dogs, guns, God, and interstate. I'd be walking down the street with the whole neighborhood standing on the front lawn. But when I got to the door, nobody home. Just the NRA welcome mat that said, "Nothing in this house is worth your life." And then one more from Character Limit. I'm going to jump into Love and Solidarity, the other book that I released a few weeks ago. 66. And the whole country calls you rust, as though the empire wasn't meant to atrophy under the weight of its own domination. The city still sizzles with all the wattage of a power outage. The empire stays the empire, no matter how oxygenated its war chest decorations are. Actually, one more from Character Limit, 26. Those days, it was easier to imagine the end of capitalism than getting sober. The tables have burned and turned. The bridge the water runs under has lifted. The instinct to forgive has been forgiven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive nobody. All property is theft. I'm going to be reading from Love and Solidarity. This is Terminal Tower. It's beautiful midnight bright. Think Cheesecake Factory. The city has gone casino carpet colored. They renovated the sky into a Foot Locker uniform. It must have been curfew weather, Cuyahoga overcast, the river ripped up into jackknife black lines. It's been a decade since I saw you in your briefcase feelings. I could never make sense of your fluorescent interiors. Remember, the whole garbage bag walled off bathroom stall flickered with potential. The hallway glass throbbed under our pace. Remember, we were in the casino at the bus stop licking gum out of the carpet. Remember, the crazy quilt of sweat across your brow was also a city on a hill. Remember, you threw that party the day Reagan died, and everybody came, but still nobody killed Bush. Somebody brought tamales. We drank Steel Reserve 211 in the abandoned steel mill. Remember, I let the tamales fly out of me like the scarab beetles in the mummy. We spent the intervening decade of shame learning how to fly out the city, kept the merch, left the dirt and gravel driveways to be some other kid's diorama river. The seasons are all fucked up. The birds don't even know when to fly south anymore. The petit bourgeois has stolen flight from them. Autumn has been replaced with falling real estate prices. Outside Quicken Loans Arena, the scalpers walk a picket line. They chant no LeBron, no peace. Our tiny gods and the seasons are leaving. In Cleveland, leaving is both the season and shorthand for class treason. The same guys burning LeBron's jerseys let cop cars glide by unburnt. The cop on the picket line is running for president. The mayor has kissed Dan Gilbert's championship ring. The Foot Locker uniform has kissed us all. When the Reagan memorial assassinations commence, we will finally return flight back to the birds. Next, I'm going to read Ghosts. Ghosts comes... It was actually appeared in Brooklyn Rail in May. I'm alone with the night again thinking, every union, every right, the ghost of a failed general strike. The smoke laughs out of me against the night, every union, every right, the ghost of a failed general strike. My father taught me how to play poker next to the Murphy bed. After every deal, he said, the pot is right. Whose pot is right and why? The ghost of a failed general strike. In his metallic mauve Ultima, the black and milds cut Sharpie-sized holes in the tan leather interior. Every cigar, every car, the ghost of a failed general strike. His uncle kept a sawed-off in his jacket to keep the scabs in line. Summer '59, nationwide steel strike. Every empty steel mill I spelunked in drunk and underage. Every warehouse empty like my pockets, every cavity in this city's foaming mouth. Every inch of the continued occupation of this continent, the ghosts of a failed general strike. Teeth, leather, bricks in the pavement, the river and its course, the speed at which a car becomes criminal, the color and quantity of my hair, the height and weight of my father and uncles, the percentage of the stars in the sky at night, the ghosts of a failed general strike. I'm going to try to catch up to myself here and remember. Oh, okay, I remember. So I'm going to read House. This is after Steal, that initial poem I read, To Eat the Fruit, Climb the Tree. Of course, I want to live in the world of ideas, unencumbered by the velocity of objects and the strange equations of the body. My mom's new hip cost her more than her house. Of course, I want to disappear into the safety of the subjunctive, lay my body down into language, slip into its warm bath after a busy shift. Of course, I want to unionize my job as the stagehand to this grief. Of course, I want to be excellent at aestheticizing this carnage. Of course, I want to love you with few distractions. But listen, there's no such thing as love as long as the ruling class lives. So I'm going to read one more, and then that'll be it. I'm just going to try to find it first. Oh, okay. Everywhere that isn't the riotous hell, when the earth opens its endless mouth, all I want is pleasure. I left the ice cream on the counter every night. Every morning, a new surprise of spoiled delight. The morning rises and then is quelled. Everywhere that isn't the riotous hell. They keep trying to send us back to work, but they're too late. The light's already changed, you can tell. Everywhere that isn't the riotous hell. The face of every diner is rain-colored. The pageantry of protest strategies echo through the state's appendages. 6 laps around the park soundtracked by unemployment hold music and me waiting for another crush. Anticipation lives everywhere. My history teaches me my neighborhood is just an assortment of porches that have not yet been torched. Love songs to stolen wages with hanging plants attached. We should have burned every restaurant in city limits, but the night sprawled in too many directions. Too much to get through in one sitting, like the skirt steak a patron paid for and insisted I boxed and then left. Jersey barriers spray painted with the police shield become security to protect the manicured purgatory of restaurant patios. The patio furniture is learning to talk back. Good fences make excellent burglars. The face of every diner is rain-colored. 14 houses in a block turn to soot, and one day we'll do the breweries. Body builds itself a mind. The engine of the city is various tourist traps. I traipse around the tourist trap with turbulent rumors and tremors. I have an evil urge to drive west. The height of productivity is death. The face of every diner is a security system. Good fences make excellent burglars. The pageantry of protest strategies echo through the state's appendages. Thank you.
Oh, fuck yeah. That was fucking stunning. I just got your book in the mail like last week.
I'm so glad to hear that.
Oh yeah, it's wonderful. And so I've been like reading it sort of slowly between things, and it's also wonderful that I could kind of like follow along while you were doing your thing. So that was like fucking badass. And maybe oh, thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
Maybe one of the Rail editors could drop a link to Grieveland and to your book in the chat. Is that something that you guys can do? Or maybe I can do it too. It's just I will be distracted for a second. But Brendan's book is for sale, and it's like it is just as like fucking fire as you guys heard. So please do go and grab it. And our final, thank you so much, Brendan. And our final reader, our final reader is Adjua. Adjua Gargi Nzinga Greaves writes ethnobotanical literary criticism and collages detritus into heraldic devices. Greaves has most recently been published in the Broken Rail and Letters to the Future, Black Women, Radical Writing from Corey Press. Her chapbook Close Reading as Forestry is published by Belladonna. A publication with Ugly Duckling Press is forthcoming in 2020. Formerly a Monday night reading series curator at the Poetry Project, site director for Wendy Subway, and an artist in residence at Rauschenberg Residency. She is currently based in New York City, where she is young mother of the Floral Review. Thank you, Adjua.
Thank you. Wow, I feel really good. I feel really good. Thank you, everybody. It's not easy to feel really good, right?
No, it's not.
So much. Hey, thank you so much. So I'm going to read some pieces and excerpts from other people, and then read some new work of my own. In my own work, when I'm quoting somebody, I'll most likely be singing. And in this first portion, when I'm reading somebody else's work and have an opportunity to just say their name, I will say their name, okay? The first three excerpts come from an event that I heard last night. Was Erica Hunt in conversation with Saidiya Hartman and Jerome Ellis, and it was from the Center for African American Poetry and Poetics at the University of at the University of Pittsburgh. I'll drop a link in the chat after my reading to it. It was sublime. It was sublime. So I'm going to read just three things that I'm still thinking about from those geniuses, and then Gwendolyn Brooks, and then Toni Morrison, and then me, and then we'll have a good afternoon. Okay. The end of the world has been on repeat. Erica Hunt. To hold on to my madness, to affirm being a Martian in this world. Saidiya Hartman. The intimacy of inviting the audience into the improvisation. Jerome Ellis. My dreams, my works must wait till after hell. Gwendolyn Brooks. I hold my honey and I store my bread in little jars and cabinets of my will. I label clearly, and each latch and lid I bid, be firm until I return from hell. Each latch and lid I bid, be firm till I return from hell. I am very hungry. I am incomplete. And none can tell when I may dine again. No man can give me any word but wait. The puny light, I keep eyes pointed in, hoping that when the devil days of my hurt drag out to their last dregs, and I resume on such legs as are left me, in such heart as I can manage, remember to go home. My taste will not have turned insensitive to honey and bread old purity could love. The piece from Toni is from what I believe was the last collected before her passing. It's called "The Source of Self-Regard," and this is the opening passage called "Peril." Authoritarian regimes, dictators, despots are often, but not always, fools. But none is foolish enough to give perceptive, dissident writers free range to publish their judgments or follow their creative instincts. They know they do so at their own peril. They are not stupid enough to abandon control, overt or insidious, over media. Their methods include surveillance, censorship, arrest, even slaughter of those writers informing and disturbing the public. Writers who are unsettling, calling into question, taking another, deeper look. Writers, journalists, essayists, bloggers, poets, playwrights can disturb the social oppression that functions like a coma on the population. A coma despots called peace. and they stanch the blood flow of war that hawks and profiteers thrill to. That is their peril. Ours is of another sort. How bleak, unlivable, insufferable existence becomes when we are deprived of artwork. That life and work of writers facing peril must be protected. That the life and work of writers facing peril must be protected is urgent, but along with that urgency, we should remind ourselves that their absence, the choking off of a writer's work, its cruel amputation, is of equal peril to us. The rescue we extend to them is a generosity to ourselves. So the work that you'll hear from me, I'm going to share my screen, and if somebody will just let me know on the other end that it's working. Oh, I guess I have to see you to receive your information about it. It's working. Emily, or can I just get some thumbs up that the screen is shared?
Yeah,
It's definitely working.
Okay, great. I'll zoom in, I promise. So I want to share this so that people who want to see the language while they're hearing it, or if they're not hearing it, can do so. And also because part of the substance of this poem, of these pieces, are the way they look. Okay. Oh, someone has a mask on in their little box. I love it. I love it. Okay. These are from, these pieces are going to be published in some form, hopefully this form, in Ugly Duckling Press's pamphlet series. I'm contributing a pamphlet called Of Forests and of Farms on Faculty and Failure. Oh. Whiteness cannot help itself. Whiteness must frame wilderness as threat. Whiteness knows integrity will mean its end. Whiteness thrives only in isolation. Fred Moten said, "Blacken up." An invitation to find the darkness within and hold its horrors close to the bosom del tuo essere, assuring the void you know it is the space that connects the universe to itself. If your spirit was born into a whiter, lighter, brighter body, reject the sirens luring you out of our dark forest to shipwreck on their civilizing shores. Take good care to shape with language worlds that want to hold us all. And when you hear them say dark, you will know that it matters. They will say it when they mean bleak. They will say it when they mean grim. They will say it and show surprise at your carnation's implication. They will say it and be surprised at your enthusiastic invitation. Leonard said, You want it darker? We kill the flame. Fred said, blacken up. Zora said, I feel most colored when I am thrown against a stark white background. They will say it when they mean a hell zone in which their shields are disintegrating, a hell zone in which their projections show themselves to be towering cages of ivory, a hell zone where the ceaseless rending of their telltale hearts beat. Never more, now than ever, more never, never now, more ever. After 300 years, do I still want this clan of goblin guardians patrolling the boundaries of my existence? Or am I finally ready? Or am I ready to join my families in the cosmos finally and for real? What better to call the energy? Bridge of false chasm, sparkle in sunshine, bosom of cosmos, knowing without knowing, making siblings of us all. What better to call this energy than dark matter? Grazie alla Dea per questi doni. È tempo di condividerli. When she says she has been hurt, believe her. Ask her what she needs. Listen to her response with all your might. Reject the desire to leave her be. Scan the planes you share for threats and predators. Protect her from violence, and then thank her for the safety you will enjoy. Like all Black women, plants dream of the day their wounds will matter. In an effort to love me better than she had been loved, my mother shipped me off uptown to hell. For it was shaped just like a school. For it finished presidential wives. For it convinced her it could care for me, and she wanted to believe that. For it convinced her it would care for me, and she needed to believe that. For it pretended to be good, and she decided to believe that. This hell so slender, white, and wealthy. Maintaining life in this body requires vigilance you can't comprehend. By which, of course, we mean, what do plants want? And where within our own bodies might we know it? For example, watching Black Girl 1966, when the life of Usumani Sembende's hero comes to that familiar, exasperated, resolute, elegant, instructive, liquid end, we understand at once how elegantly, privately, entirely, our theorem has been grandly unified. And on the street below the cinema, tell our biffle wide-eyed she killed herself because her captors didn't deserve her. And without resisting, dear Biffle follows us headlong into the floral implication with the kind of ease that comes from knowing well the capacious varieties of death. Scorpio, oh, Scorpio, oh, We dreamt, we told Babylon every plant is a Black woman, and the naked empire said, they are not smart enough to feel pain. In a tete-a-tete, signaling virtue, a young vegan proclaims, I don't eat anything with a face. Years later, we hear, I don't eat anything that had parents. Just now, a spider startled me alone on this picnic bench in Marcia P. Johnson State Park, and I, as if I cared for nothing, had learned nothing, considered nothing, offered you here nothing. So tense, so worried, and so fragile with the Jupiter of me, I, beloved reader, then projectiled, flicked, disastered, that surprising essay into an elsewhere and unknown. I made a chaos from my reflex, and now feel so sad. The shame of being this manner of being, this essere umano, on this earth, is its own Jupiter of woe. Anti-Blackness is anti-environmental. The floral progress present in a forest differs from the floral progress present on a farm in a way that helps us understand imbalances at work, in higher arts education, and other arenas where hierarchies are ubiquitous but not essential. Where are futures created by innovation and where by accident? Where in the freedom of the autonomous forest does fear of death disrupt radical creation? What does the farmer sacrifice for the certainty of yield's demands? Where do these metaphors cloud critical sense? What do they help us see? As we have chosen to name this piece of forest and of farm on faculty and failure, we will be generous and correct in first defining the quartet here. If by forest we mean a dense growth of trees and underbrush covering a large tract, and if far less often we might mean to cover with trees, and then by farm we might mean a tract of land devoted to agricultural purposes, and nearly as often to grow or cultivate in quantity, and if by faculty we mean ability and power and innate or acquired ability to act or do, and an inherent capability, power, or function, and any of the powers of the mind formerly held by psychologists to form a basis for the explanation of all mental phenomena, and natural aptitude, and then also a branch of teaching or learning in an educational institution, and the members of a profession, and the teaching and administrative staff, and those members of the administration having academic rank in an educational institution, and faculty members, and finally, power, authority, or prerogative given or conferred. And if by failure we might mean omission or occurrence or performance, especially a failing to perform a duty or expected action, and more concretely, a state of inability to perform a normal function, or an abrupt cessation of normal functioning, and also a fracturing or giving way under stress, and perhaps often a lack of success, or a failing in business, and a falling short, as well as perhaps of particular interest to those of us gathered at this text, a crop failure, and of course, the meaning held closest to the anxious heart, one that has failed. Mrs. Putnam, Carlisle Indians, the worst president's best daughter, assimilationist day school. It's like summer camp. You said and I thought. David Hammond's book stacks. LMAO, the library, the alphabet. LMAO, the alphabet is arbitrary. A spectrum is a truth. XOTK, XO. All I ever wanted was a master's in wilderness. All I ever wanted in this life was a master's in wilderness. What it means to be Black is to blacken up. What it means to be Black is absolutely dispersive, is the blur. Thank you.
Thank you. Gosh, that was stunning. Really, really, really astonishing, Adjua. Thank you. I'm gonna be sitting with that all day. Whiteness cannot help itself all day. It can't. And also the Moten and the way that the kind of Gwendolyn Brooks like really runs through it. Thank you so much for your collage and for bringing everything together, and for the performance. And I guess maybe if we sort of end the screen share at this point, we can say goodbye to each other. I wonder if that's possible. I think you might have to do it yourself. Great, there we go. Okay. And that is, I think that is everyone for this afternoon. I want to say thank you once again to all of our readers, to Amy, and Dagan, Wendy, Brendan, and Adjua. Thank you to the Real staff for having us. Thank you to all for coming. Stay very safe, stay dangerous in equal capacity. And I hope to see you all in the meat world at some point soon.
Thank you so much, Kay. Thank you for bringing everyone together. This has been like an amazing reading. Thank you, Adjua. Thank you, Wendy. Thank you, Dagan, Amy, and thank you, Brendan. I look forward every week, and thank you all so much for sharing such beautiful and moving poems. Thank you. Yeah, and thank you to everyone also who came out today. Please join us again tomorrow at 1 p.m. for the 142nd New Social Environment. Photographers and writers Susan Miselas, Peter Van Ogdmail, and David Levi Strauss will be in conversation with the Rail managing editor, Charlie Schultz. And next Wednesday, we'll have another radical poetry reading curated by Vincent Katz and Anne Waldman. Everyone now has the ability to activate their microphones and say goodbye as you leave. Thank you, everyone, so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you all. It was so good.
Bye, guys.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Wendy.
you for everything.
Thank you. Oh my God.
Thank
Thank you, everybody.
Much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
This is amazing.
Thank you so much.
I love this part.
Thank you. Appreciate it so much. Wonderful readings.
Dagan, oh my God. Dagan, Brendan.
Yes. Hello.
I really,
Thank you so
really
much.
mean it. There's